Vinny Perth is with us. Vinny, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Phil Egan outside, a font of information on football, check out Football Daily, has made a very good point that a couple of weeks ago in studio you outlined how to beat Shamrock Rovers, and they've lost twice since. It's all down to you.
Oh no.
Blueprint.
I'm not sort of that welcoming, Tala, so I didn't need Phil adding to it there either and letting people know. Jesus, help me out. Yeah, look, I think we're getting our wish. To be fair, we've got a real league title race. I'd like to think even down as far as Pats in 29 points, who would be 5 off the top of the league, are thinking, and hope people have the right mindset to say there's a league up for grabs this year potentially, and it might be the year where Rovers fall off, and we've got to push on, and as a club I hope they're thinking that way. That's the way winners should think, and I hope that's the mindset of other teams in the league. But yeah, it's I don't know whether teams are overachieving in an underachieving league. I just don't know where we're at. I look at this Rovers team and I say 18 games they've played, so we're halfway through the season, and they've only won 9, half of them. So by and large, that shouldn't be good enough to win you a league, and at the moment it wouldn't be. Obviously they're a point behind Derry, but I never compare eras, but you go back to 2017 and Cork City after 18 games were on 44 points.
Right, 10 clear.
10 clear. Dundalk in 2018 were on 42 points, and the bit of shit show that I managed in 2019 we were on 38. But to give context, just pick the 2019 season because I know what I'm talking about on that one. We had just started a 26 game unbeaten run, and that's what champions do around this time. June, July, August is when they win the league. So the point I make is Rovers be under pressure back in them. Now you can't compare leagues because it's debatable, but the point I make is and it's why I've brought up Derry a couple of times to say this team winning 50% of your games shouldn't win your league title. So this team have to kick on now, or else or Derry have to kick on and really put them under serious pressure. But there's questions to be answered. You have to say that losing or dropping points in 50% of your games is not good enough at the moment, and you have to sort of ask questions why.
Do you think there's been a consistent theme in the games they've lost? Because early on at the start of the season it felt a little bit like there was red cards and there were players not fully in form and they just hadn't settled, and then they settled and looked like they turned a corner, and now they're having another blip, which is unusual.
I think it's, to be fair, I think it's been a mixture of a lot of things. I think I would question whether this team is clinical enough, okay, in terms of for the amount of possession they have, and they're brilliant, and people will wax lyrical about them, and it's and again I know I'm repeating myself, and people have heard me say it is that sort of, we call it a Man City way. It's possession, and how many clear-cut chances are they having in games? And there was one stat from the Drogheda game which they lost where they 20 odd shots, but generally and we'll do it in the next couple of weeks if this continues, but they're generally just shots on target is down in single figures in 4 and 5, and that's not going to win you enough games of football, and it can be easy to defend against that if it's all in front of you. It's and teams will say, oh, they're getting bashed, and it's about, so if you're an opposition manager and you're playing Shamrock Rovers, what you've got to do is you've got to get into your player's head that you might have the crowd up, you might have them have possession, they might bounce the ball around, they'll switch play, little ones and twos, but while it's in front of you and it's not going in behind you've just got to stay calm. And that's the problem. Not all players do that, and someone will jump out and go and press a guy, leave a little bit of space in behind, and so there's a mixture of all of them things, and discipline has been an issue, whether referees have made the right calls or wrong calls. They've had a fair few sending offs, and they lost 3 players on the pitch in Cork the other day, and you can't win games after losing 3 players for sending offs.
I saw someone saying on Twitter last night Shamrock Rovers are averaging a red card every 3 games. The last 5 seasons of the English Football League and Scottish Premiership, only Hamilton in 19 and 20 came even close to that. So like that contextualises just how poor discipline stuff is. Well,
look, the refereeing in a league is a different issue to this one, I think, right? Because what you've got to look at, and Stephen Bradley made reference to the draw of the game. Same referee sent off 5 of the players, 3 in the Cork game and 2 against Drogheda. The 2 sending offs in Drogheda were justified. Right, so Lee Grace jumps in on a yellow card, makes a bad tackle. No one in isolation would say that wasn't a yellow card, but when you group the 5 of them together, you say this ref has given us 5. So the 3 the other day, the appeal to Richie Towell one. So the linesman gives that decision, and Rovers put a camera in their goal. So that ends up on the internet, and we see the incident. But I can clearly see, and by the way, so Richie Towell used to be called my love child around the change room, so I would not say a bad word about the man. He's been huge for my career as well, and I'd like to think I helped him in a small way, so I wouldn't, but he's given the referee decision to make. The two players fall to the ground. Richie sort of kicks out, player holds his head, and then people have seen this online. The linesman's looking across, and a decision to make. The referee didn't give the decision, so it was a red card decision made. The mistake ref gave, the ball was in play, so if that is a foul, it should have been a penalty to Cork. No one has really brought that up. And then the other 2 incidents are second yellows, okay? And I can understand Rovers' frustration on them, but what is key to it is when Johnny Kenny, who's a young player, has come back from Celtic, and I think he's exceptional forward, but there's a little bit of petulance in Johnny in terms of when he's been taken off and different things. He's on a yellow, makes a silly tackle, and the key to what happens is, if you watch the incident, Jack Byrne has a right go off him because you gave the referee decision to make. Now the Sean Hoare one, same thing. Sean makes a tackle, player goes down holding his ankle. To be fair to Rovers, most referees will go, I've sent 2 off, have a word with Sean and say 1 more, and maybe it is. And that's why I don't like questioning referees on second, because you don't see the whole sort of. I was in Richmond, so I wasn't at the Cork game, and when I watch it back, but Jack Byrne absolutely hammers Sean Hoare from giving the referee decision to make. So discipline has to improve from the teams in our league, but there's no doubt then refereeing standards have to improve. So it's quite a mixture of all of them things. And what Rovers have done is they should be close to 40 points and have a comfortable. You were speaking earlier on about giving young players a chance. Well, I tell you what, if you're Rovers now, you're not giving young players a chance in a hurry until you get your lead back. And that's the key to it. And that's where the average age of the very top teams, like Celtic, like Rovers, is generally the highest in the league, because you're under pressure to win games every week. The
one positive, I guess, for Rovers is the home game tomorrow night against Dundalk. Probably couldn't come against better opposition. Dundalk haven't won in their last 3. There's a bit of a, I don't know, I guess the fans aren't overly happy with management and owners. Yeah,
this is a story, I think, Dundalk bubbling underneath. So I was at Richmond Park the other day, and Pats against Dundalk, and what I seen in that game was, I seen Richmond Park, and I have to say, to touch on Richmond Park real quickly, like there's a guy there, Keane Menton, and it's a small point, but the mascots, he looks after them, and it's just a volunteer in the club, but he brings them on a lap of honour before as the players goes in, and you get a standing ovation. And I was just thinking to myself, imagine being 8 or 9, and you know that clapping fans thing is something you take for granted as a footballer, but actually it's something that's kind of special. Like, and people talk about professional footballers, did he really, you know the way they see them with the hand on the bottle maybe, but these kids love it, and you're going, that's when clubs have cracked it, because these are becoming, you can see these kids, like, they're loving it. But but the atmosphere and everything about Pats was really good. The stadium, over 4,500. It was probably the worst travelling support I've seen from Dundalk at a Pats game in over 10 years. Right. The fans are drifting away, and I always make this reference, while everything is growing and growing, got to be careful we treat our fans with respect and make sure they keep turning up. So Dundalk, has Stephen O'Donnell made mistakes as a manager? Yes, absolutely, and he's the type of guy who would admit that all managers make mistakes. Football is about fine margins. They lost the game the other day 2-1. Pats had a man sent off in a bizarre incident, again going back to referees, but bizarre incident, and Dundalk are down to, or Pats are down to 10 men. Dundalk are well in the game and get beaten again. And just look like they did a soft belly, and maybe tactically Stevie would think about 1 or 2 decisions. They went to a back 3 and chased it and conceded, but Dundalk are in a lot of trouble at the moment off the pitch. Peak Six, the owners of Dundalk, were ran out of Irish football. Put a huge amount of money into it, and did they make mistakes? Absolutely. I was part of it. One of the reasons I went back is I felt, and they and I've always kept Dundalk stuff private. I don't believe in writing books or because what goes on. You're managing a business in football club, and it's not for repeating stuff. But one of the reasons I went back at the time is I felt they'd learned their lesson. I felt they were willing to improve things, and they got run out of town. So, but what's happened is the hurlers on the ditch sometimes get off the ditch and start hurling, and people have found out actually running League of Ireland clubs is really difficult, and there hasn't been a single improvement in that club since Peak Six have left, and it's reflecting on the pitch, and it's pretty sad to see. And while Stevie O'Donnell has taken some responsibility for stuff on the pitch, I actually think he's overachieving with that group of players he have, and I'm concerned for Dundalk. Things aren't going well for them, and
yet they've only lost 6 games.
Yeah, I think he's overachieving. Yeah. And again, sport is full of fine margins. So they play Shamrock Rovers on Friday up in Tallaght, and I think if they win that game, they go up to 4th, potentially. European spot isn't that far away. But remember, it's only a 10-team league. 40% of the league win a European spot. So it's not. I'm not saying it's not difficult, but it is achievable. A lot of stuff is achievable within the league.
They don't feel like one of the teams who could go on a run at the moment and catapult themselves into European places, or do they?
Don't know, because we spoke about Sligo a couple of months ago, and then they went and just continued to lose, and then they go and beat Derry the other day. And the challenge I have is you see teams now in the league. It wouldn't shock me if any team outside the top 2 lost 4 in a row. Wouldn't shock me, but it also wouldn't shock me if any of them went and won four in a row. So it's such a mixed match, and we don't know. That's the sort of debate that's starting. Is the standard too high? You look at Sligo, I think up until last week, and I haven't seen the stats after last week, so you imagine it's still the same. They were the second most completed passes in the league, but they were 3rd from bottom. So is football changing a little bit where it's pass?
Well, I don't know.
Go back to Roscommon in Dublin.
Is that a team who is discovering itself and like building something, and then over the third quarter of the season and the final quarter of the season they begin to, or are they trapped and they're lacking a cutting edge and they're incapable of converting the possession? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know how to answer that, because you're probably right in terms of they are a team that were brought together. A lot of guys from outside of Ireland. I think they brought in 10 players, and 8 of them were from outside of Ireland. So, and what I mean by that is sort of wherever different parts of the world. So, not like. And this, I'm trying not to make a lazy comment here, but British football can be quite easy if they were coming from English football, as in League 1, League 2, or even lower than that conference, because it's quite similar. But they've a lot of guys coming from further afield. So I'd like to think John Russell has a plan, and it looks like they come together. They've been exceptional at different stages. But the other fear is, and come away from Sligo second, is are teams forgetting how to go and. I had a friend watching Shells and Bolshoi on TV, and his comment was, and he'd be a real football person for want of a better word, but when he rang me on the way home, I was coming from Richmond, he was just checking in on how the games were, and he's like, does no one put the ball in behind anymore? Does no one and it's like pass for pass sake, and I sound like a dinosaur, or I'm only out of the league a year or two, but you're like, football has to be careful it doesn't become sterile. Interestingly, while or Irish sport is discussing the whole sort of Dubs or commenting, you have to be careful that you're easy on the eye and not creating more chances. Going back to Rovers, do they get enough for the fullbacks in behind or the wing backs? And it's a debate that's starting to happen now, because, as I said, possession for possession's sake or looking pretty is one thing.
Yeah,
but actually go and win games.
But you'd hope that somebody. So I presume Stephen O'Donnell was thinking that when he went to the 3 at the back, it's like, I'm going to go and try and win this game, and then it doesn't work, and you get punished for it, and so you automatically then become more conservative afterwards. And
not to second guess O'Donnell, but the key to when a team goes against 10 men is generally hurt them in wide areas.
Right.
Okay. So have 2 wingers and 2 fullbacks, and go that way.
Okay.
But that's my view.
Okay.
When you go the other way, it's all central.
Sorry, one last thing on the point there. If the league is becoming this passing and kind of boring, sterile, then surely there's room for some team to emerge and be counter-cyclical. Like you do the opposite of what the whole league is doing, so you're going to be effective against almost everybody.
And I think it's not becoming boring in one sense, as in you're getting lots of good results and inconsistencies. Okay, but actually when you
watch the full 90 minutes,
when you completely tactically analyse it, or so there's a group going through their pro licence at the moment, so they will be doing a little bit of this, and I'm sure they will be looking at certain things. But I think Bohs do that at certain points. I think sometimes they've gone away from that, and the other night Bohs do that a little bit of where you've got your Dylan Connolly's up front, your Afolabi's up front, and Twardick or whoever it is, and a little bit of pace up front. And in any football, whether it's the highest level, international football, what is key is pace. That's what hurts teams. And if you're not quick in modern day football, then you better be bloody good. You better be Xavi or Iniesta nowadays. So it is becoming a running game.
We haven't spoken about Derry.
Yeah.
There's just a flakiness with Derry at the moment that would frustrate you if you were a Derry fan, or even like, I'd love to see Rovers have to chase somebody down, because I think that'd be really good for everybody. I think that would inspire them to be more aggressive, and we haven't really seen that. We haven't seen them need to be aggressive to win a league.
Yeah. For me, that's the key to the whole league. Can Derry put Rovers under pressure? And I say that in the sense of as many friends or ex-players in the Rovers dressing room as I do in the Derry dressing room. So I'd be very close to McElhenney and Duffy and Dummigan, as I would be. Dan Cleary was another one that was called one of my love childs as a coach, as you get. Like,
you were a busy
players.
man.
Yeah. I tell you what, Tell or Gannon, Sean Hoare. So I don't have a particular one that I want to win the league, but what I do want to see is I want to see a competitive league, as in someone pushing somebody, and we haven't seen that. And the challenge is up for Derry. They've been good at different stages, particularly away from home, but against Sligo, and I think Rory has spoken himself, they were just weren't good enough. And Sligo with a man crazy, John Mann centre half sent off crazily, but they just didn't penetrate enough. And again, it goes back to my last point. Just have to be careful, you're not easy on the eye. Like, they've got some outstanding wingers in Graydon and Michael Duffy. Michael Duffy's he's up there as one of the best players in the league. I always say wingers, because they have to tuck themselves out in the left, don't get the same plaudits at times, but they've got some outstanding footballers. Getting Patrick McElhenney back into that midfield is huge, and there's no doubt injuries have affected them, but I suppose you used the right word, there's a flakiness about them in terms of results.
It's Captain Obvious over here, but obviously to win a league you need to create chances and score goals. Ollie O'Neill doesn't strike most people as a natural striker. I think they had one shot on target in that game against Sligo as well.
Yeah. I
know Colin Whelan has been sidelined, so that's an issue in and of itself, but creating chances is the issue, isn't it? Scoring goals. It's a bit of Duffy will score you enough goals if he remains fit. Duffy will get into the sort of 10, 12s, but there's no doubt they have searched for that striker. Patching's form has dropped off a little bit, so he creates a huge amount of chances. Patrick McElhenney's been injured, so it looks like Jamie McGonigal is in and out of the team at the moment. Whether that's injury, we don't know, but it looks like, I mean, there is a shortage in number 9s in football, like across the world, and it's definitely the case in our league. The best striker is probably Pat Hoban and at Dundalk, and then followed by Gaffney, who's had a better season than Pat last year, and then beyond that you're looking at young Johnny Kenny, but you're probably struggling for out and out. Max Mata has had a great season for Sligo, but we've a huge shortage of goal scorers. And again,
I'd find it hard to play up front for some of these teams because it's pass, and you'd like a little bit more service, and
like there are no Glenn Crowes or Trevor Vaughns in the league at the moment, are there? Like proper goal scorers, Jason Burns.
Well, I'd say to you Houben, but like outside of Houben, he's gone, like in the game the other day, Pat's gone in different areas looking for the ball and trying to link up, and he's not being the centre forward because his team aren't good enough at the moment. So outside of Pat Houben, I would probably agree with you. Gaffney does some things, but he does them slightly different. We've a shortage in number 9s, and people want to know why. I think I've said it before, but we used to play 4-4-2, so your law of averages means we're now playing with one striker and from all the way from under 8s all the way up. So your law of averages tells you is from 8 years of age you're only working with one number 9 now as opposed to 2. So statistically you're not going to develop as many.
Yeah, difficult to fix that with, like, you want to get more people more time on the ball, more touches at underage level, but also you want to show them the killer instinct. So I mean, I don't know, maybe you can convince some of those wide players to play through the middle as they get from 18,
or maybe
19.
going back to your debate around the GAA, maybe you just let kids play.
Well, what do you think of this? Because
play 4-4-2. So be it. Do something different as a coach. Don't follow Pep Guardiola.
The underage soccer is way more competitive at 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s than GAA. Is that a good or a bad thing, do you think?
See, I think it's a good thing,
right?
But there's a lad on my shoulder shouting at me going, what about the participation? What about getting the kids out? So it's finding that balance, and
it is. I think
it's so difficult
because so you're thinking from the elite professional side of things, right? Yes. And that's but there needs to be somebody else thinking about, actually we have a sport that has mass participation already, but for whatever reason we're not producing enough players.
I would say to you, to be fair to the FEI, okay, don't know the whole ins and outs of it because it's not rolled out yet, but they're looking at a sort of calendar year around football. So for example,
summer street leagues or similar.
Yeah, well, yes. So and give you one example, and this is not going to do the FA's report, but you take, if we were able to switch certain sections of Irish football to even closer to summer football, so take December, January are really awful months in this country. It used to be November, it's sort of December, January. If that became your futsal local sort of time, futsal is a brilliant tool to develop players' skills, touch. So obviously, for those who don't know, futsal is basically a small ball. It's like size 3. It's smaller than your 4. Indoor halls, all little touch, bouncing ball around, and it's almost like Spanish football to use it. So, right? So how do you get players good at that? Give them 2 months of it in the middle of the rain and winter, and in so many of these halls that have popped up, and school halls and community centres, and run little leagues around it, or whatever the case may be. So I think that would be one small fix, but it's such a big thing for them to get in. So I think the FEI would, like, when I say calendar year football, so it's not about flogging the same coaches. So if you're coaching at Cherry Orchard under 13s, like I have a friend coaching, I think it's under 14s, and he's saying to me, because he's listening to our debate, and he's saying, but I need a break now. He's not saying that he doesn't want to work in the summer. He's like, now I need a bit of a break for a month or two. But it's about when that month or two comes
Well, that's
around.
what I was saying. If the break happened around Christmas in January and it was dark and annoying to go out at night, everybody would be like, oh, this is great, I can sit and watch telly. Whereas in the summertime, it's actually easy to get everybody to go out. And so people are going to be on holidays. But the results ultimately shouldn't matter. Like, that one trophy that under 14 team won is not the crowning moment of their life. Otherwise, we end up like Friday Night Lights, where...
No, so I give you an example of how football, and now I'm going back a long time, but I played for probably the greatest Cherry Orchard team of all time, as in trophy wise. We won everything. We won the Milk Cup as well, so that's
under 14,
under 16. So back then there was only one. We beat Rangers in the final, in a sold out cold rain, maize and all that stuff. We 10 Irish internationals in the first under 15 squad and all that stuff. But outside of Barry Prandeville, myself and Eamon McLaughlin, and I was genuinely, and I'm not saying this for an X Factor or crying, I was one of the worst of our squad. I never made international under 15, 16. With guys gone all over England but only 3 of us became in any way, shape or form. So all the trophies we won, all the league titles we won, the domination, like we won the league one year, I think it was under 15 by dropping a point.
Right.
And we only won it by 2 because Belvedere dropped 3 points.
Right.
They lost it once to us and drew with us.
In theory, the standard is really high, but actually, it's not really high. It's just that there's super focus on competition and winning as opposed to developing the players.
It's a mixture of all, and it was a different time, right? So development was different in terms of the League One pathway or whatever. Okay. But the point I'm making is, it's not about winning the trophies, but you also have to teach that as well. Like, it's a bit like, there's a job in football called the front post hole. Okay, most people know what that is, but if you don't teach kids that, and if you don't teach a fella how to do that role, and he goes on trial, say for example to England, and the man says, I want you to do the front post hole, and he's standing there, front post hole. So you have to educate young kids about
skill acquisition.
Yeah,
I don't think that's about winning and losing. So you can teach everybody the front post hole at under 6, under 7, under 8, under 9, I think.
But that's just one small example of, you've got to teach a kid how to be clinical. You've got to teach them how, when we're 2-0 up, we go 4-0 up, and then the game's over. Yeah. So when do you do that? Do you take off your best players and give other players a chance? And that's the debate. I'm not saying that's what I would do.
In the Go games, they play matches. Yeah. So they play matches, and the kids are keeping score, and they're also up against their nearest rival who they're marking, and they're very intently marking them. It's just that there's no league, and so more players will reach under 12, ideally with more skills acquired, and then I still think it's still a bit early to be like.
I throw this one at you then, and
the joy of the game is dead now. You must go and kill your opponent.
We need a debate with probably the head of performance in Irish rugby is Ger Shane. I may not have given him his right title, but he worked in New Zealand for a long time, and obviously in sport. But there is, how many kids do you think would turn up? So you turn up and you get a band. So if there's enough for 4 teams, you get 4 different colour bands.
Okay.
And you just turn up. No teams, no structure, and it'd be say under 10s, 11s. So I might have a red, blue, green, orange, and you're assigned to a pitch, and you go play. The Reds play Blues, and you play 4 matches. And I would think parents would turn up and sign up to that with the kid, because it's about playing. It's about getting involved. And even some really good kids.
Are you saying that's what rugby do at the moment?
No, so that was a pilot they run in New Zealand. Okay, and Dara has done a thesis on that around his education. It would be interesting to get his views on it. But when I heard that, and unfortunately Dara's brain works completely different level than mine, right? So I have to sit with him and discuss it. But actually, just the bare bones of that idea is brilliant for a local community. Where the other thing about, like, I live in City West now, right? So it's, and not to go on a rant here, but there's been a big community built in City West, apartment blocks everywhere. I moved up 15 years ago, fields everywhere. If I wanted to set up a team called City West FC or City West GEA, I cannot do it. You know why? No fields. It's gone. Now we've to fix housing crisis. There's no fields, so there's no communities being built. And to go back to this band thing is, so imagine my son is playing on the pitch, and let's say I'm just a normal Joe from Tala, right? Go back to what I am, right? My son's playing on the pitch with a yellow band, and the local doctor's son is playing on the pitch with the yellow band. All of a sudden I've built a relationship with the local doctor, and that's how the GAA works. That's how, but we've got to get back to that, and it's such a good opportunity. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and go games with all sports.
And people love football. Like, it's just that I was talking about this a couple of times this week. I did see a kid being shouted at, and maybe it was just because the Dubs swear more, but telling the kid to kick it in.
They're allowed to.
Shane, give me what you use. I don't know whether culture is that a not a nice term anymore.
He thinks he's not.
I'm a townie from the country.
Yeah, but it's still a culture. You do have your own lingo.
We do.
Tell me to feck off in culture language. There is a word you would
just say feck off.
Nah, you don't.
So you're using the feck. There's a subtle difference. This kid was not told to feck.
Well, I'm being politically correct. Best
all right. Okay.
Probably can't say what I would say with my mates.
Come here. We're almost completely out of time, but you correctly said in the ad break that Anne should take the Spurs job.
Absolutely. And by the way, I won't go into it, but maybe some other time we discuss it. The way he plays football, if Kane stayed, would absolutely suit Spurs.
If he stays.
If he stays, of course. He plays with a front three. Tactically, he's brilliant, okay? But I'm sorry I'm going to upset a lot of people, but he could get bored with Scottish football quite quickly.
Fair enough.
And I think tactically the way he plays with a front three, his number 8 joins in number 10, and his wingers make inverted runs all the time with the ball, and one of his midfielders come out, and he's brilliant at the way he does it. I actually think tactically it suits Spurs, and the likes of John Duggan would be happy because it's entertaining. So you think Richarlison, Son and Harry Kane, he actually would play the three of them as 3 forwards or 2 wide areas and come up with all different solutions. He is an outstanding coach, and I actually hope he gets the Spurs job, because I think I like clubs to kick on. I think he'd be a top 4.
He deserves the money at Spurs. He deserves a top job, and there's no doubt Spurs is a top job. I'm just concerned for him that the mess that is Levy and everything off the pitch. He doesn't like a man over his shoulder.
I don't know. Is that overplayed? I don't know. Is it overplayed? And yes, Daniel Levy hasn't done his business right for a year or 2, but I tell you what, they're one hell of a successful business that I'm sure they will have money to spend.
No debt, no significant debt that prevents them from obviously this
revenue stream is there with that ground. I see it happening. So we'll have to go. The Dub will take his stance on it, and you being a blogger will
blogger. That's it. That's the word you're looking for. Yeah. We got there eventually.
Jackie's over here. Look at this.
Really good stuff. Thanks very much. I'm not a Jackie.
No.
Although I was the last 10.
So County Dublin, so, man. Now Clare's County Dublin now.
Hey, careful. We'll see you on Saturday.